It started like most of our recent evenings, quiet, uneasy, routine in a way that no longer felt comfortable. She stirred her tea slowly at the table while I washed up the dishes, both of us existing in the same space, yet worlds apart. We'd been living in this kind of emotional fog for a while now. 3 months of conversations that always ended the same way. Her sighing, her voice laced with tiredness, telling me she needed freedom. And me, worn down, just sitting there, nodding, trying to figure out which version of myself she kept pushing away. There was no slam of a door or shouting match to signal things were about to break. Just a string of little dismissals. She stopped asking how my day had been, laughed at my suggestions for weekend plans like they were inconvenient. When I offered to take a day off for her birthday, she told me I was being too intense. Those words stuck with me. Too fierce for caring. Too intense for wanting closeness. That night, she reached across the table and refilled my glass of wine, acting almost cheerful. Her smile stretched thin but purposeful, like someone preparing to pitch an idea they already knew would spark something. "Let's try something different," she said. "Let's be independent for a week. Like, truly. Each person handles themselves, logistics, communication, and everything. You do your thing. I'll do mine. Just for 1 week." I didn't look away. I kept my expression neutral, took a slow sip, and let the idea land. My mind didn't race. It slowed. The suggestion wasn't surprising, it was overdue. For months, she'd been dancing around this craving for separation without owning it. Now she was dressing it up like an experiment, something playful. But her tone betrayed her. She wasn't curious. She was testing. I said, "Okay." Not loud, just firm, like I'd already rehearsed the answer. She blinked, surprised. "Really? No questions, no debate?" I pushed my chair back and stood. "You're right. Why wait until Monday, next month, or after some big discussion? Let's start now." I glanced toward the hallway. "You're free. Right here, right now. Let's do it your way." She laughed, a little uncertain now, but still playing the part. "Fine. Mia's been wanting me to stay over anyway. I'll pack a few things. You sure you're not going to fall apart without me?" That line, it should have hurt. But it didn't. Because in that moment, I wasn't clinging. I was watching, studying the way she tried to keep it light, while already pulling out her phone to book a car. An hour later, her small suitcase thudded against the front door. I followed her out to the driveway without a word. The Uber idled at the curb, headlights soft in the dark. She turned, waiting for something. Maybe a joke, perhaps a protest, anything to tell her she still had me under control. I reached down, lifted her bag, and walked it to the trunk. The driver popped it open without looking. I placed it inside, closed it gently, and then turned to her. "See you then," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "That's it." I shrugged. "As it works out." I stepped back as she climbed in, and didn't wave when the car pulled away. I stood at the edge of the yard until the taillights disappeared, then walked back inside. The house felt different the second I closed the door. Lighter, but not in the way you feel after a burden lifts. It was more like walking through a space you used to love and realizing you no longer belong there. I walked straight to the front panel near the staircase and tapped the smart lock settings. Her guest access was disabled. The master PIN has changed. Notifications, muted. The system chirped a quiet confirmation, and I stood still for a moment, fingers still on the screen. There was no bitterness in the act. It wasn't revenge, just a response. The same kind she'd been giving me for months, now mirrored back. Then I went to the hallway closet, pulled out my old hiking backpack. I wasn't running. This wasn't an escape. It was participation on her terms. I placed my laptop inside, along with some documents I knew I'd need for work. 2 sweaters, a notebook, a pen. Essentials. I zipped it up, looped the straps around my shoulders, and walked through each room once, just scanning, not searching for anything, just witnessing. The couch where she used to fall asleep during movies. The window seat she once loved for morning coffee. The kitchen where I used to try to surprise her with new recipes. All still there. None of it meant anything now. I locked the door behind me. No note. No announcement. She wanted space. I'd finally understood how to give it, clearly, without clutter, without confusion. By midnight, I was checked into a modest apartment hotel just across town. Nothing fancy, nothing sentimental. Clean bed, warm lighting, a small kitchenette. I placed my phone face down on the nightstand, in silent mode. The banner notifications began arriving shortly after. Casual ones at first, Made it to Mia's. Hope you're okay. Let me know if you ate. I didn't open them. I just watched the screen light up briefly, then go dark again. It was the first night in months when I wasn't trying to guess how she'd react, wasn't navigating around her moods, or filtering my voice to make sure she didn't feel strangled. I just sat there, back against the headboard, hands quiet in my lap. She had asked for freedom. I had given her mine. The apartment had a dull hum to it, the kind of silence that doesn't echo, it absorbs. I woke up to muted light through beige curtains, a slight buzz from the fridge, and the weight of clarity still resting on my shoulders. There was no pull to check messages. The phone remained face down, untouched. I made a cup of coffee using the pod machine on the counter and drank it slowly on the windowsill, watching the traffic in the alley shuffle past, like an assembly line of other people's everyday lives. By noon, the second wave arrived. 3 messages. Shorter, sharper. Are you okay? Where are you? Seriously, are you doing this? It was fascinating how quickly absence began to reshape her tone, less teasing, more disoriented. The playful confidence from the night before, the smirk, the suitcase, the flippant "don't text me," was fading. Or maybe the silence just revealed it for what it had been, bluffing. I left the phone on the desk and stepped outside for a walk. I didn't have a destination, just a need to feel the sidewalk under my boots. I stopped at a small diner around the corner and had a sandwich by myself, the kind of meal where every bite felt deliberate, like I was reclaiming something I hadn't realized had been given away. Around me, people moved in small, familiar rhythms, smiling at servers, tapping on keyboards, laughing in pairs. It made me think about how much of my routine had become artificial. Going home had stopped meaning return. It had turned into avoidance, dodging moods, shrinking presence, and sidestepping resentment. That evening, back in the studio, I sat cross-legged on the floor, sifting through an online rental site. A modest listing caught my eye. A small studio, west-facing, with exposed brick and just enough space for one person to stretch without brushing against the walls. I didn't hesitate. A month-to-month lease, paid in full with one click. No paperwork delays. No approvals needed from anyone else. The confirmation came within seconds. Just like that, I had a place that didn't carry the echo of compromise. As the page loaded, another notification blinked on my screen. 3 missed calls, 2 from her, 1 from her friend. I didn't play voicemail. I'd heard her voice enough times lately to know the pattern. Breezy, then clipped, then irritated. It was always layered with deflection. This time, I was giving no target for her reflexive sarcasm. Only space. The next morning, a set of shipping boxes was delivered to a nearby locker I rented through the same app. I ordered them online from the studio, still in socks and a threadbare hoodie, listening to jazz from a tiny Bluetooth speaker. There's no need to rush or explain anything. The storage rental would be linked to a new card, one she never saw, one tied to no shared accounts. I could move things slowly, invisibly, as if fading from a photo, one shadow at a time. The 4th day, I checked her calendar, still synced to the smart hub in our house. Yoga, 10 a.m. That gave me an hour, maybe more. I parked a block away, walked through the backyard to avoid the cameras she assumed I never used, and stepped into the kitchen with the quiet confidence of someone who'd already said goodbye. The house still smelled the same, lavender and coffee, but it now felt artificial, like a showroom. I walked to the bedroom and picked up my acoustic guitar from the corner, sliding the soft case over my shoulder. In the hallway closet, I pulled a winter coat, a pair of hiking shoes, and a few paper notebooks that still had years of sketches and songs I hadn't shown anyone. That was enough. The rest could stay. She could keep the framed photos, the souvenirs, and the vase she once said felt like us. I no longer needed symbolism, just function. Before locking the front door, I placed a small envelope on the inner handle. On the door inside, a typed note on plain printer paper. Independence is an action. I am acting. For the remainder of this week, all communication must be through email only. No texts or calls. That wasn't a threat. It wasn't a theater. It was structured, a boundary where there hadn't been one before. Back at the studio, I plugged in the guitar, tuned it slowly, and strummed a single chord. The resonance filled the space without bumping into anyone else's energy. No eyes watching. Then came the lock alert. 3 failed entries. The system flagged it. Wrong code input multiple times. Her code. I tapped the camera feed. She stood on the porch, face flushed, hair half-tied, phone in hand. She looked unsure, something I hadn't seen on her face in months. She leaned down, spotted the note, and picked it up. Her eyes scanned quickly, then slowly, then again. She sat on the steps, elbows on her knees, phone still gripped like it owed her something. I muted the audio and just watched. The messages came seconds later. Okay, I get it. Can we talk now? I'm sorry. This was supposed to be fun. A joke. You're overreacting. The final message that night came from her mother. Hi. I don't know what's happening, but she's worried. Can you just answer her? I typed one sentence. We both agreed on a week of independence. I'm doing my part. After sending it, I shut the laptop and turned off the lights. The room darkened without resistance. I lay down fully clothed, one arm behind my head, and stared at the ceiling. No pressure on my chest. Just breathe. Silence had never felt so alive. By day 5, the silence had taken on a new shape. It had started as space, a vast, open stillness where I could hear myself again. But now, it was becoming something else. A force. Not loud, but solid. I could feel her trying to push against it, like someone tapping on the glass of an aquarium, expecting the fish to react. She was tapping hard now. The messages arrived at shorter intervals. At first, she'd left long gaps between texts, probably thinking I'd respond once I cooled off. But when those yielded nothing, the tone changed. That's when the pushback began. Enough already. You made your point. Stop acting like I hurt you. There was urgency now, accusations woven into each line. Words stacked hastily, as if pressure alone could pry the door open. By then, I was settled into the new studio. The boxes had arrived, along with a folding chair, a second-hand desk, and a mattress delivered in a vacuum-sealed roll that expanded slowly across the floor. The place didn't feel like home, but it didn't need to. It held nothing I hadn't chosen. That was enough. I brewed tea in a dented kettle I'd picked up at a nearby thrift shop and watched as the message previews kept flashing on the screen. She was trying every angle now: guilt, humor, mockery, nostalgia. One message had a photo of the two of us from 3 years ago, standing under autumn trees in Vermont. Her caption, "Remember when you actually loved me?" I stared at it for a long time, because I finally saw it clearly. Even in that picture, she had been holding the camera out with one hand while looking at the screen. My face was half turned toward her. Her eyes were on her smile. Later that afternoon, I received an alert from the home security system. The calendar showed yoga, but the driveway camera caught her pulling in 10 minutes after she was supposed to be halfway through her class. She entered the house carrying a gym bag, paused inside the foyer, then moved to the hallway. She tried the code again. 3 failed attempts. This time, she lingered, stepped back, looked straight into the door camera, as if trying to guess whether I was watching. I was. She sat down on the steps outside, elbows on her thighs, scrolling through her phone with jerky movements. Her mouth moved as she read something. Maybe her messages. Perhaps the note I'd left hanging inside the doorway. Then she stood up suddenly, paced a little, and began typing. The message came seconds later. Open the door. I left my charger inside. I need it for work. Another one followed, almost immediately. Are you seriously going to play this game over a charger? Then, a few minutes later, Mia said you're being cruel. I told her you were always dramatic. I closed the app, poured another cup of tea, and opened my email. There, in the clutter folder, was a message from an address I didn't recognize. Her friend Natalie. The subject line read, "She's spiraling." I clicked it out of curiosity. The message was short. She doesn't know how to fix this. She's saying things she doesn't mean. She's not handling the silence well. Please don't let this destroy everything. No apology. Just a plea. One that somehow placed the weight of restoration on my shoulders. As though silence equaled destruction. As though my stillness was louder than everything that had come before it. I responded only to confirm receipt. Noted, I wrote. This is her week, too. The 6th day began like the others, with quiet. But something about the energy had changed. The sunlight through the window felt thinner. I checked the camera feed once before heading out to run errands. She hadn't come back. Yet the alerts told me she'd tried entering twice more throughout the day. Once at lunch. Once just after dusk. Each time, the same result. Invalid code. I returned to the house just after dark, knowing from the motion logs that it had been empty for hours. I stepped inside, crossed through the foyer, and retrieved a few more items: a scarf from the coat rack, 2 novels from the bedroom shelf, a small speaker from the living room. Things that weren't essential, but still mine. Before I left, I placed a fresh note under the welcome mat. Simple, direct. Please respect the agreed terms of our arrangement. All communication should remain digital and scheduled. I checked the system one more time to ensure all codes were secure, then walked away again. Back at the studio, I unpacked the new items slowly, placing each one with deliberate care. There was no rush. The space wasn't waiting for me to finish, it was already mine. That evening, she escalated. The texts now had capital letters. "This is too much." I was joking. "Why are you making this so final?" It was strange to see her lose her composure. For so long, she'd kept a tight grip on the emotional steering wheel, deciding when things were light, when they were tense, when to shut down, when to allow softness. But now, with that wheel spinning on its own, she couldn't regain control. And she hated it. Another message came, this time from her mother. "I don't understand what's going on, but she's falling apart. You're both adults. Can't this be resolved like one?" I answered with a single line. "We are resolving it." She set the terms. I'm following them. There was no follow-up. I looked at the phone, then powered it off for the night. Sleep came quickly, without tossing, without mental recaps of arguments, without strategizing what to say the next morning. It was the first real sleep I'd had in weeks. The pushback hadn't broken through. If anything, it confirmed something I had only begun to suspect when she first suggested the experiment. She never wanted space. She wanted control, on her terms, with me close enough to reach, but far enough to disregard. She wanted freedom without consequence, a rehearsal, not a shift. And now, faced with real distance, she was learning the difference. The seventh morning unfolded like a script she hadn't written. The phone, long left untouched on the studio table, pulsed alive with a fresh storm of banners. The first few held remnants of her earlier bravado, as if she were still pretending this was a performance I had misunderstood. "Okay, fun's over. You made your point. Time to grow up now. You've taken this way too far." I was having breakfast, black coffee, 2 eggs, and silence. My fork clicked against the plate, the rhythm strangely comforting. Across from me, sunlight streamed through the window and caught the rim of my mug, creating a warm glare. It felt peaceful. She wouldn't understand that word anymore. Around noon, the messages turned from commands to apologies, half-hearted at first, as though she still believed there was power in letting down just enough pride. Maybe I said things I didn't mean. "You weren't supposed to take this seriously. I just wanted us to loosen up, breathe." I stepped away from the desk and grabbed my coat. The air outside was brisk enough to sting the lungs, but not so cold as to chase anyone inside. I walked past the same bookshop I'd passed 3 days earlier, went in this time, and picked up a journal. Plain cover, thick paper. Felt right. At the register, the man ringing me up didn't ask questions. It was refreshing, doing something without being prodded for context. Back in the studio, I sat down and turned on the phone for a brief moment. The volume was still down, but the notifications flooded in like a wave that hadn't learned its place. Among them, one message stood out, longer than the rest. From her, of course. Multiple paragraphs. I felt like I was drowning and needed to reset things. "I never imagined you'd just vanish. I didn't mean it like this. You left me outside like a stranger. That night, when I walked out with my suitcase, I thought you'd call me before I reached the corner. I was waiting for that. When Uber took the turn, I kept looking at my phone, waiting for it to buzz. And when it didn't, I assumed you were stewing. But this has been silence I never prepared for." It went on, references to shared moments, meals, private jokes she used to roll her eyes at. Now, suddenly, they were artifacts. She quoted lines I hadn't heard her use in years. A second message arrived minutes later. "I'm scared. I don't even know where you are. Please just tell me if you're okay." She was unraveling, piece by piece. The smirk from that first dinner, the dismissive wave as she packed, the casual brush-off at the door, all dissolved under the weight of her invention. I considered answering. Briefly, a single line, something that would be neutral, just to confirm physical well-being. But she'd already received that answer through her mother, and the week still had hours left. Instead, I opened my laptop and drafted a short email, timed and scheduled to send at midnight. Subject: week completed. Body. Our agreed-upon experiment concludes today. For further discussion, submit requests in writing. I'll respond after review. No signature. Later that evening, the camera feed showed her returning to the house again. She didn't attempt the lock this time. Just stood in front of the door with her arms folded tightly, rocking slightly in place. Her gaze moved slowly across the exterior, like she was hoping the house would show signs of me, as if the absence of movement behind the curtains was too much to process. She sat down on the top step, pulled her coat around her shoulders, and stared at the front yard. 20 minutes passed before she picked up her phone again. The following message had no punctuation. Please come back. That one, I read twice. Then shut the screen. By now, she had messaged mutual friends, co-workers, and even someone I hadn't spoken to since college. One of them texted me, urging peace, reminding me of the years we had shared, the good things we had once built. They meant well, but they only knew the outer shell, the version with coordinated holiday cards and shared playlists. They never saw the gradual silence from her side that predated mine. I returned to the couch, feet propped against a milk crate serving as a makeshift ottoman. My tea had gone cold, but I drank it anyway. Outside, city noise floated through the cracked window. Horns, laughter, footsteps. Life didn't pause just because one person decided their voice was the only one that mattered. Near midnight, one final surge came through. A string of messages, rapid fire, with time stamped seconds apart. I'm sorry. I didn't think. It was never real, the idea of independence. I just wanted you to miss me. You're hurting me now. Why are you being so cruel? This is a punishment. I feel like I'm being erased. You're killing what we had. Then, like a drumbeat at the end of a fading song. Please just talk to me. At exactly midnight, the scheduled email was delivered. She read it instantly. The reply arrived within a minute. Come back. I was joking. I went too far. We can fix this. I wrote one line in return. I'm not. Then, I attached the contact information for a mediator and a lawyer, someone neutral, professional, and removed from any emotional involvement. No follow-up came that night. I powered off the phone, placed it inside the desk drawer, and exhaled for what felt like the first time that day. She had asked for a trial separation in disguise. A mock performance to spark something. Maybe longing. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. She never expected actual absence. She had wanted the feeling of risk, not the real thing. But when silence stayed longer than she intended, it stopped being a lesson for me and became one for her. She was beginning to understand. Panic doesn't rewrite terms already signed. The sun crept through the slats of my studio blinds like it had every morning that week. But this time the light hit differently. Finality hung in the room like steam after a shower, quiet but dense, coating everything. I sat on the edge of the bed, the email still open on my screen, her reply from the night before burning through the white background. Come back. I was joking. I went too far. We can fix this. She had typed it in haste, probably with shaking fingers, maybe even with hope. But the week had reshaped things. What began as a playful rebellion on her end had grown into a mirror she didn't expect me to hold up. I'd already said the only words left. I'm not. And I meant it. That morning, I made my coffee more slowly than usual, listening to the faint drip from the machine as if each drop were marking time. I set it on the windowsill and leaned against the frame, sipping while traffic below kicked into gear. Horns, distant chatter, the muffled thud of someone hauling trash bins across concrete. It was life, untouched by the theater of personal drama. My phone vibrated on the table. One more message preview blinked on the screen. Her mother again. She's crying. Haven't seen her like this in years. She says she doesn't recognize you anymore. I deleted it without opening. Her confusion made sense. I had always been predictable, steady, forgiving, and slow to anger, the kind of man who absorbed tension like a sponge, just to preserve peace. For years, I stayed anchored while she tested the winds. She treated affection like a faucet, twist open, let it run, then slam shut. Control wasn't her tool, it was her oxygen. But this week, the script changed. She had asked for autonomy under the illusion of play. I gave it substance, gave her precisely what she wanted. Only, I removed the safety net. The last of my belongings arrived by courier that afternoon. A small box containing a pair of framed photos, a few worn t-shirts, and my old wristwatch that had been tucked inside our shared dresser. The delivery guy handed it over with a nod, without asking any questions. I signed, thanked him, and then placed it on the counter without opening it. The past had been neatly folded for me, boxed and sealed. Around 3, I received a new email. The subject line was blank. The body just read, "I was selfish. I thought if I made you chase me, you'd come back stronger. I thought you'd prove you couldn't live without me. But now you're proving you can, and I don't know how to exist in that version of the story." It was the most honest thing she'd said in months, maybe years. Still, it made no difference. I brewed a second cup of coffee and returned to my desk. A friend had sent over some freelance leads, small design gigs I could pick up remotely. I began drafting replies, attaching my portfolio, and shifting back into the rhythm of purpose that didn't rely on partnership. Later that evening, I stepped out for a walk, past the same flower shop she once dragged me into on Sundays. The owner was outside trimming stems. She smiled. I gave a brief nod and kept walking. Further down, a couple sat sharing fries on a bench, their knees touching, laughing at something. I watched them for a moment, not envious, just observant. There was a time I would have mistaken that kind of connection for permanence. When I returned to the studio, there were 15 unread messages. "Please don't make this the end. We can see someone. I didn't know it would go this far. Please." I opened my journal and wrote for an hour. Nothing heavy, just thoughts, scattered, clear, uninterrupted. The pen moved without friction. Ideas flowed like they'd been waiting for silence. At midnight, I checked the house cameras one last time. She hadn't returned that day. No motion. The game had ended. Except it had never really been one. That was the mistake. She framed our disconnect as performance, thinking it was reversible. A drama that would close with applause and a return to routine. But this wasn't a theater. It was a revelation. Her panic had grown from the realization that control wasn't permanent. That absence can't be shaped once it takes form. She thought a week apart would make me orbit back. Instead, it became my way out of her gravity. I returned to my seat, set the phone to permanent mute, and closed the laptop. My coffee had gone cold, but I didn't mind. I raised the mug anyway. To stillness. To clarify. To the truth silence had finally made audible. She wanted independence as a symbol. I lived it as reality. Her fear began where I finally stopped answering.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.